Dancing at the Flea Market, a sweet romance short story by Heather Tullis, Chapter 1. It had already been an insanely long day when Mara's plane finally touched down in Corpus Christi, Texas. She threaded through the crowd and found the luggage conveyor for her flight, where she waited for her suitcase, exhaustion pulling at her as much as her heavy carry-on did. Her meager sleep the previous night and short nap on the flight from North Dakota hadn't been nearly enough. She shifted her carry-on farther up her shoulder, holding her heavy winter parka on the other arm, then pushed her long brown hair out of the way. Bags kept flowing from the machine and whirling past her. They stopped coming, but hers hadn't appeared, and all of the other passengers had cleared off. Mara was alone. She checked the sign again. Yes, this was the right spot. Her heart beat a little too fast. A sinking feeling said her bag hadn't made one of the transfers during her 2 layovers. She was still standing there with the vague hope that a miracle would happen and her suitcase would magically appear when she heard a shrill voice calling her name. Mara! She turned and saw Anna, her old college roommate, running toward her, wearing 2 high heels, a short skirt, and a sleeveless top, her blonde curls bouncing as she ran. Mara wondered how Anna could be so energized after her long flight from Vegas. Mara met her partway and moved her coat to her other arm. They hugged tightly. "It's so good to see you." "I know. I can't believe I finally convinced you to leave the snow for a few days for some sun." Anna adjusted her carry-on over her own shoulder. It was only big enough to hold her makeup and maybe a swimming suit. "Where is your other suitcase? Didn't your plane arrive like half an hour before mine? I haven't picked up my bag yet." Mara glanced back in time to see a whole new load of luggage start to shoot onto the conveyor. "Looks like mine got lost somewhere en route." Anna's pink lipsticked mouth fell open. "Oh no. Please tell me you packed a swimsuit and change of clothes in your carry-on. I mean, your bag will probably come in tonight or tomorrow, but you have to have something to wear to dinner and at the beach. We're on vacation, and it's spring break, baby." "We're way too old for the spring break crowd," Mara said, thinking that at 26, she would feel like a cougar even looking at college guys. "But I did pack a change of clothes in my carry-on." "Oh, good." Anna snagged Mara's arm. "Come on, let's grab my stuff, and then we can go talk to someone about your luggage." By the time they made arrangements for her lost suitcase and picked up their rental car, it was after 3. Anna turned the car west, heading for the mainland and the condo complex where they would be staying, talking almost as fast as she drove. "We have to do some shopping tomorrow. I hear there are great boutiques nearby. Oh, and I can't wait to show you the great swimming suit I bought for the trip." She stopped to suck in a breath. "Look at all of these gorgeous beaches." "Beautiful," Mara agreed. "Remind me again why we're staying at an inland lake instead of at a hotel out here." Anna adjusted her sunglasses. "Noisy, obnoxious college students with spring break fever. And they're a bad thing because—" Mara poked her friend, knowing she was only half joking. Anna would be eternally 22. Mara sat back, getting into the vacation mindset. It had been too long since she put real life aside and let herself go with the flow. That was one of the reasons she'd agreed when Anna bullied her about this trip. Anna was totally fun and spontaneous and would insist Mara get involved instead of allowing life to pass her by while they vacationed. They arrived and checked in at the condo complex a little before dinner. The building was tan stucco and looked like it had recently had a facelift. "This is what I'm talking about." Anna lowered her sunglasses to peer over the top at some half-clad college men who were striding up the boardwalk from the shore. "Come on." Mara grabbed the enormous suitcase Anna had shoved into the trunk and staggered under the weight before setting it on the ground beside her. "What do you have in this thing, rocks?" She didn't bother to wait for an answer as she rolled the suitcase away from the car. "Let's go get changed and grab some dinner. After being on the go all day, I need decent food and a relaxing evening to recuperate for the lake tomorrow." Agreed. They reached the stairs to the second floor, where Mara pulled the bag up behind her. The stairwell was narrow and steeper than she'd expected. "I wonder how many people have nearly killed themselves on this thing." "Well, hello there." Anna's voice was soft and teasing, and definitely not directed at Mara. Mara looked up to see a man standing at the top, waiting for her to finish making the trek to the second floor. The downward curve of his lips indicated impatience, marring what would otherwise have been a nearly perfect face. His hair was dark, almost black, and cut short. Startlingly pale blue eyes were highlighted by thick brows and a face that was all planes and angles. She had to catch her breath just looking at him. "Do you need some help with that?" he asked, looking a little annoyed. "I'd rather not stand here all day." "What?" Mara realized she'd been staring, so she turned her attention back to the suitcase. "Sorry." Heat flooded her face as she began pulling the suitcase again. Way to make an idiot of herself. There was a grunt, and the man appeared at her side and placed his hand over hers on the strap. "Let me get that." His voice was more than a little grudging. "I really do have somewhere to be. Second floor or third?" "Second." Mara knew she must sound like the biggest moron ever. He lifted the bag easily, his arm muscles bulging beneath the short sleeves of his shirt while he carried it to the top. Though Mara had been the one towing it, Anna was the one who responded. "Thanks for your help." She fluttered her eyelashes a little, and her voice went breathy. "No problem. Have a good day." His tone didn't match the words. He took off for the parking lot without giving Anna's flirting so much as a second glance. An amazing accomplishment. Mara watched him for a moment as he walked away, all graceful ease as he strode off. She pulled herself out of her trance when Anna started to titter. "He's hot, isn't he? And definitely not a college man." She agreed, putting his age around 30. "Annoying that he was so abrupt. But at least he was nice enough to help with your enormous suitcase. How much extra did you have to pay to get this on the plane anyway?" "Don't ask." Anna minced her way to the door and slid the keycard in the slot, letting them into the condo. It was small, a kitchen living room area, a medium-sized bedroom with 2 double beds, and a bathroom. They had a tiny walkout balcony on the far side, facing the lake. Mara walked through to the sliding glass door and stepped out to check the view. "Come take a look. It's gorgeous." She sometimes joked that the winters in North Dakota were the best 9 months of the year, but she could have sworn it had been longer than that since she last saw anything green that wasn't a houseplant. The grasses and trees around the lake filled her soul with joy. This trip would be everything she'd hoped for when she finally got her luggage. "Nice," Anna said flatly, apparently unimpressed. "Come on, let's get cleaned up and grab something to eat." "I looked up some restaurants before we came." Mara took one last glance at the water, then went back inside. She was starting to get her second wind. Her stomach growled, making her agree that dinner took first priority. Plenty of time to soak in the beautiful weather tomorrow.
Carter checked his watch, wondering if Paolo, his former father-in-law, was already waiting for him at the restaurant. It had been 2 years since Rosa's death, but Carter still tried to keep in touch with her family, if only to help keep her memory alive. He'd lost track of time while swimming in the lake earlier, and he'd been waylaid by his boss's executive secretary, who was having trouble with her computer and didn't trust anyone else to fix it. The fact that he'd been on vacation hadn't mattered to her. Then those slow-poke women had put him even further behind schedule. He hated being late for anything. He pulled up to the restaurant and nearly groaned when he saw the sign that read, "Karaoke every night." Just what he needed, people singing off-key while he ate. It was bad enough that he had to face the emotional meeting with Paolo without having his ears assaulted. He wondered if his father-in-law had eaten here, or if he'd chosen it from the local Chamber of Commerce site. Paolo and his wife lived in Florida, but when he'd mentioned that he was making a business trip to one of Carter's favorite places, Carter decided a vacation was overdue and arranged to be here at the same time. Carter found Paolo at a table near the stage. "How are you doing?" He stood and gave Carter a hug. "I'm well. You're looking well. That college job must be agreeing with you." Carter was head of IT at University of North Texas, and it kept him busy, but he enjoyed the work. "Can't complain," he said with a smile. "How are things for you? What are you doing now?" Paolo started talking about his new business selling nutritional supplements and the magical, life-altering powers they had. He always seemed to be looking for the next best thing to support him and his wife. Somehow, he'd managed to keep food on the table when he was raising Rosa and her two brothers. They ordered dinner, and more people filled the tables around them. By the time the waiter brought out their food and the MC announced the beginning of the karaoke for the night, the place was packed. Carter focused on his roast beef sandwich and his companion, trying to ignore the screeching, off-key singers behind him. "Are you dating yet?" Paolo asked after he'd had a few bites. They'd been putting off that topic since they sat down. Not much. That was an understatement. He'd had a few dates here and there, but Carter always felt guilty about spending time on a woman, as if he were cheating on his wife. Besides, no woman he'd ever met could hold a candle to Rosa. "You need to start dating again," Paolo said. "It's been too long. Rosa wouldn't want you to be alone forever." Carter dragged a French fry through his ketchup. "I haven't met anyone who could hold my interest." "You mean you won't get to know anyone because you're afraid of getting hurt again?" Carter opened his mouth to protest, but Paolo held up a hand. "Don't make excuses. I can only imagine how hard it must be to lose someone you love, but you're still young. I want you to promise me that next time you see someone who intrigues you, even a little, you'll take a chance and get to know her." Carter wanted to argue, but Paolo was right. He did need to get out and start dating for real. He was lonely, and a little companionship, even if he wasn't ready yet for anything serious, would be a welcome change. "Okay, I promise."
Chapter 2. Mara felt the familiar rush of excitement when they pulled into the restaurant parking lot after she saw the sign announcing karaoke. "Did you pick this place because of that?" she asked Anna, pointing to the sign. "Yes, you need to use that talent, girl. You're languishing working on payroll for a furniture factory. I keep telling you to move to Vegas where you can get a job singing. But do you listen?" No. Mara had no desire to live in Vegas, but she felt an enticing tingle at the thought of being on stage again, even if it was at a second-rate karaoke bar. "I could sing a song, I guess." They were ushered to one of the last open tables and quickly placed their orders. Anna asked the server when the karaoke was supposed to start and grinned when they were told that sign-ups would begin in a few minutes. Mara felt her cell phone buzzing in her pocket and pulled it out to see she'd missed a call earlier and now had a text message from her younger sister, Jo. "Where is the heating pad for Dad's back? Did you make it safe? Haven't heard from you." Mara wrote back, mentioning that they were out to eat and couldn't hear the phone ring over the music. "Your dad?" Anna guessed. Mara snorted. "Are you kidding? Dad doesn't know how to text. It was Jo. She's taking care of him while I'm out of town." Though she lived with her father to help him recuperate after his stroke, her sister took dad duty whenever Mara needed time away. "How's he doing now?" "A lot better, actually. Not independent, but he doesn't need someone to watch him every minute anymore." She didn't know if she'd ever be able to move out, though. What if he had another stroke, and no one was there to find him in time? Mara's mother had passed away years earlier. She didn't think she could stand to lose her father, too. "Then you can start living your own life again," Anna said. "Go back to school and get a job you like better." "I'll think about it," Mara said, though she didn't know if she would. A couple of years earlier, she'd had an interview set up for another job, but her father had his stroke a few days before. That had been the end of her grand plans to make a life of her own choosing. The announcement came for karaoke signups. Anna nudged Mara's shoulder. "Go, you know you want to." Trepidation trickled into Mara as she stood, but she wasn't about to back down from a chance to perform.
Carter was nearly finished eating and was thinking about returning to his condo to sack out for the evening. It was great to see Paolo again, but hard too. A warbling teenager finished singing the latest Taylor Swift song. He barely glanced up when a woman took the stage, and the MC announced that the next singer was named Mara and would be singing "Someone Like You." A mature voice with the richness of Swiss chocolate filled the room. He looked up at the singer. His hand paused in midair, holding his last French fry, and recognized the brunette he'd met on the stairs at the condos, though in his irritation, he'd barely looked at her before. He stared at her, totally taken in by her voice. What was she doing singing karaoke when she could be singing for pay on a stage anywhere? The noisy restaurant quieted as everyone turned to listen. He nearly forgot where he was. She mesmerized him with her long, brown hair, oval face, and thick eyelashes. Every emotion in the song showed on her face and came out through her voice. The final notes floated over the almost silent audience, and 2 beats passed in near reverence before the room exploded with applause and whistles. A smile of exultation covered her face as she waved to the crowd, passing the mic to the next person in line. When the whistling went on for a long moment, the MC stood and addressed the crowd. "Do you all want to hear Mara sing again?" The noise level rose in confirmation, so the MC looked at Mara, who had stopped at the edge of the stage. "Would you do one more in a while?" She paused for just a second, then nodded. "All right, everyone stay tuned. Get another round of drinks and order dessert. She'll be back." He announced the next singer and started the music. Carter sat back in his chair, stunned. "She was terrific, wasn't she?" Paolo said. "Yes, she was." Carter glanced at her table, where she sat with the blonde. Their heads were bent together. He really hoped to get another chance to talk with her. Several songs later, when she stood and headed back to the MC, Carter decided not to leave yet. He'd wait until she'd sung a second time before he returned to the condos. Chapter 3. Carter was up early the next morning. He went for a run before breakfast, then headed for the lake for a swim. It was a couple of hours before he saw Mara and her friend running through the shallows, splashing each other and having fun. He didn't approach right away, not wanting to come across stalkerish, but waited until she headed back to the beach to stretch out on her towel for some sun. He walked over and asked, "Are you having a good time? Didn't I see you singing last night at that karaoke place?" Mara lifted a hand to shield her eyes from the sun and squinted up at him. A look of recognition came over her face. She sat up. "You were there? I was really impressed. You have an amazing voice." He glanced at the empty sand beside her. "Mind if I join you?" "Go ahead." The blonde friend tipped her sunglasses down her nose and peered at him. "Aren't you the one who helped us with my suitcase yesterday?" "Was that your suitcase?" He looked back at Mara. "So where was yours?" "Lost somewhere by the airline. I have to go pick them up later today unless I want to wait for delivery tomorrow." "That's a pain. I've had that happen before," he said. "By the way, I'm Carter. I don't think we exchanged names yesterday. I was in a bit of a hurry and inexcusably rude. I wanted to apologize about that." He was embarrassed when he looked back on the conversation. "I'm Mara, and this is Anna." She gestured to the blonde. "Where are you two from?" Carter leaned back on his hands. "I'm from North Dakota," Mara said. "She's from Vegas. We roomed together in college." "Sounds like fun. I bet this is a nice change of scene for you." He looked at Mara, admiring the light sprinkle of freckles across her nose. "It's nice to see something besides mounds of snow for a change." "How about you?" Anna asked, a smile teasing her lips. "Where are you from?" "Fort Worth." They spoke for several minutes, long enough that the water droplets had evaporated from Mara's pale shoulders. Anna caught the eye of a guy who looked young enough to still be in college and started chatting him up. Paolo's words rang through Carter's head again. Mara wasn't from Texas, and he wasn't about to move to North Dakota, so there was no reason they couldn't get to know each other. He needed to start somewhere with this dating thing. "Would you like to grab some lunch? The burger stand isn't exactly high class, but..." He was so bad at this. Had dating changed much in the past 5 years? "Yeah," Mara said. "I'd like that."
Mara was surprised. Mara was surprised when Carter came over to join them, and even more surprised when he asked her out. Contrary to her first impression of him, he'd been nothing but pleasant. Lunch might be a good chance to find out what he was really like. She grabbed a t-shirt to slide over her swimsuit and put on her flip-flops. "I bet those haven't been worn much," he said, indicating her footwear. "Not a lot of sunny beaches in North Dakota at this time of year." "No, they aren't very practical in snow. Does it get cold where you live?" "A bit in the winter and at night, but not by your standards, I'm sure." "Have you ever thought of living somewhere with a warmer climate?" A frisbee landed at his feet and he picked it up, winging it back to a group of kids farther up the beach. "Or did you choose North Dakota for its lovely weather?" "I never chose Bismarck." I grew up there and moved back after college while I put in applications for jobs. Somehow I ended up staying. She shrugged, not regretting being around for her father, but longing for the opportunities she had given up. Where do you work? Carter asked. I do payroll for a furniture manufacturer. It's pure excitement all the time. She half-heartedly twirled one finger in the air. How about you? I'm the IT manager at a community college. It keeps me busy. Who keeps you hopping? Students who like to do things they shouldn't, or inept professors? His smile totally transformed his face, adding a dimple in his chin. That was far sexier than it should have been. A bit of both. Mostly it's routine issues and lots of software updates. My whole job is routine. She looked around at the lake and trees and took in a deep breath of appreciation. This is a nice change of pace. They arrived at the window and ordered. A couple of minutes later, they took their drinks to a nearby table while they waited for their food. So did you always want to work in payroll? He teased. I have an accounting degree, but I didn't go back for my master's like I'd planned, so I took what I could get. I can't complain. It's a nice, regular paycheck with benefits. But you don't love it. He studied her for a few seconds. What would you do if you could have any career you want? Sing? She felt her face flush. No, I love music, but it's my second love after accounting. That's a shame. You're really good. He leaned forward on the table, bumping his drink. They both jumped to grab it. It knocked against her hand, splashing a little on her before his fingers wrapped around the cup, overlapping her fingers. Mara sucked in a breath of surprise, and their eyes met. He pulled back, looking away. Sorry. No problem. She set the cup flat again, then dabbed at her hand with the napkins he passed to her. Her heart pounded, and she found she was a little out of breath. It is just the adrenaline from the surprise, she told herself, but she knew it was his touch. Math, huh? His voice was a little desperate as he returned to the previous subject. I'm good enough at it, but I don't see the appeal. She shivered a little with awareness, but followed his lead and focused back on the conversation. I like puzzles. Math and accounting are puzzles. You have to figure out how to put it all together, and when the pieces fit, it makes a nice picture. If you're lucky, I always meant to go back to school for my master's. Maybe it's time to give that some more thought. Mara nodded. I will. The conversation moved on to talk about movies and their mutual love of football. Though he didn't touch her again, the imprint of his fingers lingered on her skin. When the food was long gone, Mara noticed the time. I probably ought to head to the airport for my things. Right. He stood, collected their garbage, and threw it out. When he returned and faced her, he hesitated for a moment. Come on. She returned to where Anna sat with the college guy. Anna grinned at them. I'm going out with Tom on his boat. The keys to the car are on the kitchen counter. Mara froze. She hadn't been paying attention when they had driven from the airport. I have no idea how to get back to the airport. Anna sent Carter a knowing look. I bet you could find someone to go along with you as your navigator. I'd be happy to go with you, he said almost before Anna finished speaking. But that would take a couple of hours of your day. I don't want to keep you away from your plans. Except she didn't want to say goodbye, and she really hoped to spend more time with him. I'd like to go with you, if you don't mind the company. His hand brushed against her arm. Mara felt her breath back up in her chest. Her tongue tripped over itself, but she managed to nod, then make her mouth work again. I'd like that. They picked up their things and headed to their condos to clean up and change. While Mara took a quick shower, she considered his offer, her feelings, and what they might mean. It had been a very long time since she'd been involved with someone who set her off balance like this. When she came out of the condo, Carter waited on the walkway by her door, wearing blue jeans and another muscle-defining t-shirt. You were pretty quick, he said. I expected you to take longer. She glanced at her watch. I thought we said 20 minutes. We did, but most women don't watch the clock that closely when they're getting ready, at least in my experience. I guess I'm not your average woman. She hooked her purse over her shoulder and wrapped her hand tighter around the keys to the rental car, then turned toward the parking lot. I wish we'd rented a convertible. It's too beautiful to be cooped up in a car. Yeah, It's just about perfect. Maybe later today we could rent a paddle boat and go to the east end of the lake. He was already making plans for later that day. She didn't respond for several seconds. I, look, I'm having a really great time with you. Really great. She stopped and turned to face him, waiting until he met her gaze before continuing. I'd like to see more of you, Fa, but I'm not really sure what to do about this. It's just a weekend, and then we both go back to our real lives, right? She wasn't sure which answer she wanted to hear. Carter picked up her hand, turning it over and running his finger down her palm, making goosebumps rise on her arm. I know. Maybe that's why this seems so easy. No expectations. I admit I'm a little rusty at this dating thing, and maybe I needed to meet you to break out of whatever it is that's been holding me back. All I know is that I'm having a lot of fun, and if you're having fun too, I'd like to spend more time with you. Same here. Lots of time, she thought. Reassured that they were at least on the same page, she smiled. I guess we should get going. Carter gave her fingers a little squeeze, and she led him over to the car. He directed her to the main road before she dared bring up the question that had been lingering in the back of her mind. Why are you rusty at dating? What? He seemed to be taken off guard by the question. You said you were a little rusty with the whole dating thing. She glanced at him quickly, then back at the road. Why haven't you been dating? She kept her focus on the road, though she really wanted to watch his face as he responded. Her head had been filled with reasons why he had been out of the dating pool. A longtime girlfriend, a stop in a mental hospital, a major illness, though that one seemed unlikely considering the shape he was in. It took him a moment to respond. My wife died a couple of years ago. Oh, she didn't know what else to say. He was a widower. That brought up a whole new set of concerns she'd never considered. Was he over his late wife? I'm sorry for your loss. The words felt hollow. Thanks. It's been a rough couple of years, but it's getting easier. There was another long moment of silence. How about you? Seeing anyone back home? No. She tried to process what he'd said and come up with a response at the same time. I've been busy with work and my family. Haven't had a lot of time to meet new people. Tell me about your family. How much detail should she go into? Was there a reason to hold back if she wasn't going to see him again? My mom died a few weeks before I finished college. I came home for the summer to help Dad adjust, but then I got this job, and I've been there ever since. She told him about her father's stroke and how it had changed her life. Then again, while things seemed to be easy for Anna in the romance department, Mara always had a harder time. How's your dad doing now? Does he still need a lot of care? Carter asked. He's doing better. My sister Jo is taking care of him while I'm gone. That's good. Family is important. He stared out the windshield. I was at the karaoke bar with my father-in-law last night. You keep in touch? Mara was impressed by that and maybe a little intimidated. Maybe that was a sign that he was still grieving his wife? Or was it just sweet? I keep in touch. Not like I ought to, maybe, but we catch dinner when we have the chance and we email. He fidgeted in his seat. I can't imagine losing touch with him. Tell me how you met your wife, Mara said, wanting to see inside his personality. He complied, talking about how he and Rosa met in college and fell for each other instantly. They dated for 6 months before he popped the question and were married a few months later. In return, Mara told him about some of the terrible dates she'd been on, having nothing comparable to discuss. Before she knew it, they were pulling into the airport. Time had never flown by so fast, nor had it been so enjoyable. When Carter mentioned a restaurant he'd like to take her to that evening, she felt a tingle of warmth in her chest, knowing that he wasn't in a hurry to part ways either.
Chapter 4. The next night, Carter took Mara out for Mexican food and salsa dancing. He taught her the steps at the edge of the floor so they wouldn't get trampled. I can't get it, she said with a laugh when she lost the rhythm for the third time. You can do it. It takes a little time to get the steps right. He loved that she was willing to try something new and was having fun, even if she was messing up. Step forward with the left, then lift your right foot and put it back. Good. Now return to center. He showed her, taking her hands in his to walk her through it. They went slow at first, and then he sped up when she caught on, going through the motions. Great. Now try to act like you're having fun. Put your hips into it a little. She did, and a smile slid onto her face as she grew more confident. This is fun. I told you it would be. They danced for nearly an hour, then ordered fried ice cream for dessert. He enjoyed listening to her talk about her family and home. She had the kind of love that showed through her soul. He respected the way she'd put her dreams on hold to take care of her father. The weather was perfect when he walked her back to the condo. The moon was nearly full, making it easy to see the ripples on the lake, even in the darkness. I had fun today, she said when they were only a couple of doors away from hers. I haven't had that much fun in a long time. He gave her hand a squeeze, happy they had spent the day together, and surprised that he could feel so at ease with someone who wasn't Rosa. I think this is my best vacation ever. It ranks pretty high for me too, she said. Glad to hear it. He came to a stop in front of her door. Thanks for joining me. Her hair shone in the lamplight. Her lashes fluttered against her cheeks when she closed them for a moment, then opened them with an expression of pleased embarrassment. His gaze drifted to her lips. She rubbed them together, as if she felt his gaze. I never knew salsa dancing could be so much fun. Now you know. He stepped closer, unable to draw his attention from her face. They'd spent 2 full days together. It couldn't possibly be too soon to kiss her, could it? The light scent of gardenias drifted on the breeze as she lifted her face to his. Then the image of Rosa came into his head. Rosa had always worn gardenia perfume. Guilt shot through him. How could he even be thinking about kissing someone else? He pulled back abruptly. Yeah, well, it's getting late. Meet you for breakfast tomorrow? Disappointment flickered in her eyes. Mara nodded. Say about 9? Perfect. I'll pick you up. He stepped back even more, his heart racing, his palms sweating, and guilt zipping through his system. Good night. Good night, Carter. He nodded and turned away, confusion twisting through him. This was supposed to be a chance for him to get used to dating again, but it was starting to feel like much more. He hoped sleep would help sort it all out by morning.
Will we be able to move the boat without hitting a duck? Mara asked as she stepped into a paddle boat the next day. She'd seen the way the birds clustered around people feeding them. I guess we'll have to see. Carter waited until she was seated, then passed over a bag of treats for the ducks. Mara grinned. It was Saturday evening, and they'd been together nearly every waking minute since he joined her and Anna on the sand 2 days earlier. She'd never laughed so hard or so often. Carter was fun, and they had the most interesting conversations, discussing everything from their favorite shows to their biggest worries. She didn't think they'd run out of topics anytime soon. They paddled around the lake, a determined crowd of ducks following. When the treats were gone and the ducks had scattered, Carter took Mara's hand. I was thinking about what we should do tomorrow before we have to head to the airport for your flight home. Then I realized that you came to vacation with Anna and the two of you have hardly seen each other. Mara felt a sense of satisfaction in that. Though she'd looked forward to oodles of girl time, Carter had been a more than adequate replacement, and Anna had a different guy on her arm every day. We had dinner that first night, and hey, we caught lunch with her yesterday. Yeah, and what else? She and Anna had talked long into the night about their respective activities, but Mara didn't want to admit she'd been discussing him. We caught each other for chats. So you don't mind spending your final hours on vacation with me instead? He reached out and touched her face, moving a lock of hair away from her cheek and tucking it behind her ear. His thumb brushed her cheek as he pulled his hand back, and it made her shiver. No, I don't mind. She looked up at him and caught her breath when their eyes met. The look in his was so intense. This wasn't the first time she thought he'd kiss her, but he never had. She didn't know why and didn't know what to think about it. Was he holding back because it would all end soon, or was there something else bothering him? Good. His finger trailed along her jaw, making her skin tingle. Have I mentioned that I think you're beautiful and sweet, and that I love spending time with you? His voice had dropped a little lower as he spoke, turning it husky. I don't think you ever mentioned the first one. Her own voice seemed a little breathless. He was close enough that she could smell his cologne, a light, musky scent. She swallowed as he drew closer. Feel free to tell me again if you like. His lips curved, and then they covered hers. The kiss was careful, soft, and uncertain. She leaned into it a little, and he grew bolder, sliding a hand onto her shoulder and pulling her closer. His fingers cradled the back of her neck, and a thrill shot through her. This man made her feel precious and loved. Her head spun as he pulled away. She realized with a start that she'd gotten way too deep in the relationship. How had that happened? And how was she going to deal with it when she returned home to her predictable but lonely life? Chapter 5. Mara tucked her makeup case into her carry-on. Are you sure you don't mind that I've barely been around this weekend? She asked Anna. I can cancel with Carter or do something else with him. I really was looking forward to spending time with you this weekend. While she told Carter it was fine, after she and Anna had a long talk the previous night, she felt bad to have been away from her friends so much, even if Anna had been having fun without her. Are you kidding? I'm glad you're having such a good time with an actual man who isn't your father. You need to get out. Anna finished combing her hair and picked up the hairspray. Besides, we've had a lot of fun together, even if it hasn't been quite as much as we expected. I had some terrific dates with several guys, and you're going all gooey and cute with Carter. The two of you are adorable together. You're sure you don't mind? Mara wasn't entirely convinced. Anna turned to face her, a hand on one hip. You like him, don't you? So much. She sat on the bed and looked at her friend. I can't tell you how great it's been. Then why do I get the feeling that something's wrong? Mara frowned. Because he's just a vacation guy. We don't live anywhere near each other, and I'm going to miss him so much. But I don't want to be one of those stupid girls who think they're in love after only a few days, and then pines for the guy they couldn't have had anyway. Who says you can't? Anna put both hands on her hips. Hello, I live halfway across the country. Not to mention the fact that he's still in love with his wife. Anna covered her mouth dramatically. Oh, right. And phones and web video chats and email don't exist, so you're totally going to have to lose touch. Don't be stupid, Anna. No, you don't be stupid. The only thing keeping you from continuing this relationship is yourself. She ratted her hair to make it fluffier. Apparently satisfied, she smiled and tucked the comb into her makeup case. Regardless, you've had a terrific few days, yes? Savor the time you have left together and get his phone number. There was a knock at the door. That would be Loverboy, Anna said, tossing Mara the lipstick she'd left on the counter. This isn't mine. Right. Mara tucked it into her pocket and answered the door. Carter stood outside, a little tanner than he'd been the day they arrived, and wearing a much bigger smile. You ready? Yeah, just a second. She took one last survey of the condo, grabbing the phone charger next to her bed, and stashed it in her suitcase, then zipped it up. Let's go. He grabbed her suitcase and Mara shouldered her bag. She gave Anna a tight hug. It was great to see you again. I'll call you next week. You'd better. Anna gave her a wink. They got outside the door, where Carter took Mara's hand. Are you sure I'm not monopolizing your time? She grinned. You are, but that's okay. I don't mind one bit. She threaded their fingers together, loving the way his strong, big hand wrapped around hers. Where are you taking me today? Have you been to a flea market? They have a great one nearby that runs most weekends. You like to shop? She didn't think she'd ever met a guy who did. It's browsing, and sometimes I find cool things. They started down the stairs. You seem really familiar with this area, she said. Yeah. His tone was flat, not giving anything away. His reticence confused her. When have you been here before? He didn't say anything for a while. I came here once as a teen and brought Rosa back several times. It's kind of a special place for me. Because it reminds you of her. Yeah. Mara felt a sinking feeling in her chest and wanted to cry. He was still in love with his wife. How could she ever hope to compete with a dead woman? Is that why you only kissed me once? Because you still love her? As soon as the words escaped, she wished them back. Did she sound like she was complaining? Did she want him to say that no, the real reason was because he wasn't attracted to her? It wasn't like she was the most practiced flirt, and she hadn't kissed many guys. But he obviously knew exactly what he was doing. The paddle boat had proven that. Is there a right way to answer that question? He asked. I could say that it had nothing to do with her, and then you'd think the reason I haven't kissed you much is because there's something wrong with you, which isn't at all true. Or I could agree, but then you'll think I can't let the past rest. He glanced away, which is partly true, I guess. She felt something inside, a sprig of hope that had started to blossom, crumble, and blow away. I'm sorry, I don't have any right? Yes, you do. He stopped next to his car and set the suitcase down, then took her carry-on and set it on top. When her other hand was free, he took it so their bodies formed a circle. Her memory does haunt me, I won't lie. I planned to spend decades with her, and that didn't happen. But my feelings for you are so different. Hey, in a good way, he said as Mara was bracing for him to blow her off. You're the first woman I've dated more than a couple of times since Rosa died. Instead of getting bored with you or having you wig me out by something you do, I just want to spend more time with you. I know what we promised each other a few days ago, and I don't want to overstep my bounds, but you're special, Mara. A smile slid onto his face. And I definitely like kissing you. She felt herself melting. I've had a great time with you, too. She leaned back against his car and lifted her face for the kiss he offered. A thrill of excitement and longing swept through her as he leaned closer. She pulled his hands behind her and released them so she could wrap her arms around his waist and slide forward for more. He took his time with her, shifting his head for a better angle, then kissing along her jaw to the soft skin just below her ear. She sucked in a breath of surprise as goosebumps raced along her spine. He returned to kiss her mouth for another moment before releasing her. As she caught her breath, she knew walking away from him was going to break her heart. Still, she had 4 hours until she needed to check in at the airport. You ready to go to the flea market? Yes. He kissed her quickly again, then released her to load her luggage in the trunk with his own. The ride was beautiful. They recounted childhood memories and made up stories about the people they passed, inventing errands and ridiculous backgrounds that had them both laughing. The market was much bigger than Mara had expected. Carter pulled her through the tables, where they picked out furniture for their hypothetical beach house, discussed the relative merits of yard ornaments, and chose their favorite dinner plate patterns at a vendor whose table was piled with old dishes. It was remarkable how closely their tastes aligned. They came to a vendor who had Christmas tree ornaments for sale, despite the off-season. This is perfect, Carter said, holding up a silver duck. Cute. It looks almost like the ones in the lake. He handed it to the vendor to wrap up. I want that one for sure. They poked around the ornaments a little longer, and she pulled out one that looked like a jalapeno. Doesn't this remind you of salsa dancing? She asked. Yeah, let's get that one too. You always plan your Christmas decor this far in advance? She asked after he paid. He took her hand and led her farther down the aisle. No, but I want something to remember you by, and I want you to have something to remember me by. He looked over, and a sweet ache filled her chest. I think that's a great idea. Her throat felt tight with emotion, but she forced on a smile. What next? He tugged her toward the far end with food vendors and a group of musicians with their bucket on the ground, soliciting donations. They ate juicy tacos from one truck, then split a funnel cake piled high with strawberries and whipped cream. When the food was gone, Carter asked her to tuck the ornaments into her purse and then offered his hand. May I have this dance? Are you serious? Here? She looked around them. No one else was dancing. He leaned in and said in a low voice, Are you afraid people will want to join us and we'll start a whole new trend? She stared at him for a moment, then accepted his offer, looping her purse strap up over her head so it couldn't fall off. The music changed to a country swing, and Carter twisted and twirled her around on a bare section of dirt. Mara laughed, loving his bright eyes and easy grin and the fact that his gaze rarely left her face. The wind blew through her hair, cooling her neck. When the song came to an end, the music group transitioned into a slow song. Carter pulled her close amid the babble of voices. The smells of frying food, spicy Mexican meat, and the fresh scent of outdoors lingered, surrounding them. She couldn't take her eyes off of him. It was time to head back to the airport, but she didn't want to go. Not wanting to end a vacation wasn't new. She often wished that she could stay longer. But until now, it had always been from reluctance to return to real life, not a desperate longing for what she would leave behind. Today, what made her want to stay was all him. The music came to an end, and he dipped her, then lifted her back up against him. They stared in each other's eyes for a long moment, breathing heavy. He leaned in and kissed her, lingering over it. When he pulled away, it was only a fraction of an inch. "I don't want to leave you." His voice was low and husky. "Me, neither. Can we forget about real life and stay here forever in this moment?" she asked in a whisper. "I wish we could." He tucked his face against her cheek for a long moment. "We ought to go now." "I know." Still, they stood there. It was nearly a minute before he stepped back. He kept hold of her hand as they walked to his car in silence. She didn't know what to say anyway. When they were belted in, he began a conversation on a general topic that wouldn't make things any harder for them. At least it shouldn't have. But suddenly a discussion about favorite Christmas music became so much more than it would have been before. He pulled up to one of the drop-off spots at the airport. He'd driven to the area rather than taking a plane. He unloaded her bags and set them on the sidewalk beside her. "I'd like to keep in touch." "Me too." She suddenly remembered the ornaments and pulled the sack out of her purse. "I don't want to walk off with these, or at least not with both of them." He pulled them out of the package. "Which do you want?" He held them in front of her, gleaming in the sunlight. She stared at them both for a long moment, then took the duck. "It'll remind me of the lake and of their first kiss," but she didn't say that. "Good." He glanced at his watch. "You really ought to go." "I know." Her heart raced as she pulled out her cell. "Will you put in your number? I'd like to talk to you sometimes if that's okay with you." What would he say? He smiled. "Sure, and you, impatient." They traded phones and entered their own contact information. She added a street address for her house, though she didn't know if he'd ever use it. She passed back the phone and accepted her own, sliding it back into her pocket. She was probably a fool. He was still messed up over his dead wife, and she was asking for heartache. Carter pulled her close and kissed her again, his fingers delving into her hair. Mara touched his face, trying to memorize the feel of his skin, the rasp of whiskers on his chin against her fingertips, the scent of his cologne, and the way his lips molded hers. If there was a chance she would never experience this with him again, she wanted to remember every detail. "I'll call you," he said when he finally pulled away. "I love you." But she couldn't say the words. It was supposed to be a fun weekend, no more. How had she let herself fall for him so hard? "I hope so. Goodbye." Before her plane even took off, her phone dinged, announcing that she had a text message. She opened it up. It was from Carter. "Miss you already." "Me too," she responded. She slid the phone back in her pocket and smiled. Chapter 6. When she touched down in North Dakota, snow was falling again. At home, after unloading her luggage from the car, grateful the roads hadn't been bad, she took a picture with her phone and sent it to Carter. "Home sweet home. I already miss the sun." Joe greeted her at the door as Mara sent the message. "Writing to Anna again already?" "Not exactly." Mara hadn't mentioned her holiday romance, but knew she would have to soon if she and Carter kept in touch. Her phone chimed again, and she pulled it out to check. There was a picture of grass and trees in the moonlight. Not so cold here, but still awfully quiet. Mara smiled and put the phone away. "Okay," Joe said. "Who did you meet on your trip? Anna didn't put that smile on your face." Mara tried to make light of it. "His name's Carter, and we'll see if it goes anywhere. He lives in Texas." "Oh man, that sucks." Joe took the extra suitcase from Mara and headed inside. "But it's terrific that you connected with someone. You'll have to tell me all about him." "Maybe tomorrow." She wanted to keep the memories to herself for just a little longer. "Tell me about Dad." 3 weeks passed, while Mara and Carter continued to send regular text messages and talk on the phone each day. As she carried a load of groceries into the kitchen, she smiled at a funny comment he made about an overheard conversation on campus. "Carter again?" Her father asked. "What makes you say that?" She pocketed the phone and began unloading groceries. "That grin. You always get it when you've been talking to him. He set down the newspaper he'd been reading and stood. What are you doing, Mara? I'm unloading the groceries, she said, though she knew what he really meant. No. He took her hand and looked her in the eye. I know you gave up a job opportunity after I had my stroke. I'm doing better, honey. Don't you think it's time you stopped putting your own dreams on hold for me? She looked up at him. But I like living with you, he smiled. And I love having you here. But I'm doing much better. And you don't belong with an old fogey like me. You should be somewhere where you can reach for your dreams. Somewhere with opportunities. With a man who can put that kind of smile on your face. He tapped a finger against her chin. She swallowed hard when he referred to Carter. Her father was right, but Carter still loved his wife. It's complicated. It always is. He touched her shoulder. But you deserve more than what you have here. Just think about it. I will. She grabbed his hand and gave it a tight squeeze. But first, I need to get these groceries taken care of. Since you're so strong and healthy, could you bring in the rest of them? He sighed dramatically. I knew I was going to regret saying that even before the words were out. She changed the subject to the impending spring thaw and the places she wanted to visit as soon as the ground was visible. But in the back of her head, she started thinking about Masters of Accounting courses. Maybe at a school in Texas.
Equals I miss you. The text came through while Carter was eating a quiet dinner alone, as usual. The message was accompanied by a picture of a duck waddling in the snow. He wondered if Mara had taken the photo or if it had come off the internet. He picked up the phone and wrote her back. I'm enjoying a delicious TV dinner in front of the television tonight. Could use your company. The television was off, but he left out that detail. His eyes drifted to the set and then upward, inexorably to the picture on top. A wedding picture Rosa had framed after their honeymoon. Guilt flooded him again. What was he doing? How could he keep up this long-distance flirtation? The closer he got to Mara, the more he felt like he was cheating on Rosa. His phone rang, and he looked at Mara's name on the display. He answered the call with his happiest voice. Hey Mara, how are you doing? Great. We got all the way up to 54 degrees today. Spring is just around the corner, he chuckled. You have a whacked-out idea of spring. Have I ever mentioned that? Maybe, once or twice. So what are you watching? Nothing, really. I was thinking about settling down with a book. It's been years since I read Salem's Lot. Oh, Stephen King. I love his books. Read that one a few years ago and didn't sleep for a week. I started telling Anna about it, but she made me stop. Said if I kept going, she'd never be able to walk alone on campus again. He laughed. That is one drawback. What's new in your neck of the woods? A long moment of silence followed, and he was about to check to make sure the call hadn't been dropped when she answered. I was thinking about going back to school for a master's degree. Really? That's terrific. Are you looking to head to Denver again? How much farther away would she be if she moved there? Or would it come out to nearly the same distance? I was thinking maybe a little farther south. Her voice sounded hesitant, nervous. I understand that University of North Texas has a great Masters of Accounting program. His eyes flicked over to the picture of Rosa. He felt a little overwhelmed. Mara was talking about picking up and moving across the country to live closer to him. Wow, that is a long way from home. Not so far, compared to other universities. I could go to California or Hawaii. She sucked in a breath. Look, my feelings for you, I've never felt this way for anyone else. I'd like to give things a chance, see what could happen if we lived closer. He didn't say anything at first, his gaze riveted on the photo as both hope and fear shot through him. You would move all the way down here just for me? What if things don't work out? He wanted to date her for real, to have dinners and movies and long chats like they'd enjoyed on vacation, but there would also be pressure in knowing she'd moved halfway across the country to be with him. He didn't want her to regret it. The school really does have an excellent accounting program. There was distance in her voice now. Don't feel obligated just because I move closer. I already put in my application. It's too late for fall semester, but we don't have to date if you're not interested. Her voice broke, piling on the guilt. No, I mean, of course I want to see you again, and often, so much. It's just, He stood and walked away from his half-eaten meal, no longer hungry. This is about Rosa, isn't it? More guilt. She must think he was leading her on, which he wasn't. At least he didn't think so. He liked her a lot, maybe more than liked her. He couldn't answer, clueless as to the right words to use. At the silence, she said, I see. Well, I guess that answers that question. I ought to go. I'll talk to you later. She hung up before he could even say goodbye. Carter tossed the phone onto the couch, harder than he should have. Things between him and Mara were only supposed to have been temporary, a chance to ease back into dating, not have a real relationship right away. But he felt a stronger pull to her as the weeks passed. What was he doing going out with someone long distance, anyway? He didn't actually think that a woman as wonderful as Mara would be willing to be friends forever, did he? He turned to the wedding picture. What do I do now, honey? How do I put you away and give someone else a real chance? Rosa didn't respond, not that he'd expected her to. He rubbed his forehead. Had he blown things with the only woman he'd connected with in over 2 years, one he thought he might love, because he was afraid to try again? Chapter 7. The school year was winding down, and Carter was already getting requests from different parts of campus as staff asked for updated equipment for the following semester. The rush seemed to start earlier every spring. A virus had rampaged through the South Computer Lab, so he'd spent the better part of the weekend getting it cleared up so students could work on their term papers. His eyes were gritty, his temper frayed, and he hadn't heard from Mara in nearly a week. When he called, she found excuses not to talk long. When she answered at all, he'd hurt her, though he hadn't intended to, and he missed her more every day. His phone rang, and he answered it eagerly, hoping it would be her this time, but instead it was Paolo. "How are you tonight?" Paolo asked. "Staying busy. Problems with the school computers. How about you?" Carter didn't want to talk about his own life right now, or his love life. He had told Paolo about the time he spent with Mara, and that they were still in contact, but he didn't want to discuss it now. Can't complain. Paolo went on to talk about the great experience he'd had the previous day while selling his miracle supplements. At the end, he slipped in a question. "And how are things with Mara?" As if it had been part of the discussion and not an unrelated subject at all. Carter stood from the computer where he was working. He needed a break before he got to the point where he couldn't see straight anymore. "Fine, I guess. We haven't been in touch much this week. You know how these vacation flirtations go." His voice was flat. Paolo apparently picked up on it because he made a tsking sound. "Why are you playing games with your heart, Carter? Have you told her how you feel?" "How can I when I'm not sure?" He strode past rows of computers, desperately wishing he could get away from the conversation. "I thought you were crazy about her," Paolo said. "I was. I am." He sighed. "It's not that simple." "Yes, it is." Paolo paused. "You loved my Rosa, and you always will, but it's past time to let her go. Move on. Making a new life with someone else doesn't mean you never loved Rosa. She would want you to be happy. I think Mara might be just the woman for you." "You've never even met her." "No, but the woman's soul shines brightly when she sings. I saw your face and awe. I've heard the smile in your voice when you speak of her. If you love her, go for it. Love is not so plentiful that you can choose to ignore it." Carter's heart confirmed what Paolo was saying. He had fallen in love with Mara, hard. Taking that leap, though, was terrifying. He missed her, and the part of himself that loved her warred with the part that was afraid to take the risk. He turned and headed back down the row of computers. She was special to him, more important than she'd realized, but how was she supposed to know that if he didn't tell her? With a sense of peace, he realized it was time he put away the things of the past and focused on what could be instead of what was. "Thank you, Paolo. I always appreciate your advice." "I'm glad one of my children does." A storm was coming on as Carter pulled through the cemetery gates. It wouldn't hit for another hour at least, so he wouldn't be lingering, which was fine with him. He took the familiar route around the east side, past mausoleums and cracking tombstones, to the familiar area of the cemetery with newer graves. Flowers dotted the cemetery grounds, along with teddy bears, balloons, and even a plastic violin joining them, decorating the graves. He pulled off to the side and parked under a tree, then picked up the mixed flowers he'd bought a few minutes before. He hadn't visited Rosa's grave since his vacation, though not a day went by that he didn't think about her. The wind ruffled his hair, and he could smell rain on the air. It reminded him of the day she died. The rain had lashed against the windshield as he'd driven to the hospital. The phone call from the police had sent adrenaline rushing through his veins and worry filling his head. Today's storm wasn't supposed to be as big, but the dark clouds overhead still made him nervous. Carter set his bundle of flowers in front of the grave marker, creating a slash of multicolored brightness Rosa would have loved. He sat on the grass beside the grave to talk, as he often did. "Hey, honey, I know it's been a while, but I've been trying to move on. I hate it, though. I miss you so much. Work is going well, I guess. I stay busy running around fixing computers for all of the professors. The other day, a kid hacked into the system just to see if he could then left me a message where I would be sure to find it. He was pretty ingenious, but thankfully didn't mess up anything." He shifted the conversation to his brother. "Carson is getting married in 3 weeks. He's so happy. He's like a totally different person when he's with Trista. They remind me of us when we got married, all bright eyes and hope for the future. She's already talking about kids." He choked up when he thought of his unborn son. They'd only learned the baby's gender the week before the accident. "How can I feel so lost when everything looks like it ought to be fine?" He moved and crossed his legs. "I met someone last month. She has me all twisted up in knots." He told her about meeting Mara outside the condo when she arrived, of hearing her sing. He talked about all of the time they had spent together that weekend and how their friendship had grown since. "I know your father is right, that you would be fine with me moving on. Mara's important to me, so I'm going to take a chance and see what happens, if I haven't screwed everything up already. She makes me happier than I've been since you died." Tears threatened, and he let them fall. "I love you, Rosa. Part of me always will. I hope you know that."
Mara got her acceptance to UNT quickly, even though she'd have to wait until January to start the program. She gave notice at work that she'd be moving to Texas during the summer to get established. Then she started sorting through all of her belongings. She had savings if she couldn't find a job right away, but hopefully she'd find something when she moved. When the papers had first come, she'd still been smarting from the terrible phone call with Carter. She seriously considered declining and applying to another school, but her better judgment had taken over. The program was only a year, and surely it wouldn't be hard to stay out of Carter's way if he didn't want her in his life. It was time she took her future by the horns and charged forward. Within a week of her acceptance, she had phone interviews for a couple of jobs in the Fort Worth area and was making arrangements for the move. Sorting through her stuff was a bigger task than she'd expected. Her winter parka wouldn't see much use, but there was no point leaving it behind. She'd need it eventually. The fate of other things were harder to decide. The little rosette her mother had tucked in her hair at her junior prom brought back memories. She found her photo album, planning to tuck the silk flower inside. Then she got caught up in the pictures of herself as a child, her parents laughing together at a family reunion, her mom helping her decorate cookies for a fundraiser. Tears slid onto Mara's cheeks as she saw her mother's smiling face. What she wouldn't give to talk to her about what was going on now, to get the kind of advice her mother had been best at. Mara had tried to talk to Joe, but her sister said to walk away and find someone who didn't have a ton of hang-ups, like a dead wife. Mara wiped her face and spoke to the decade-old image. "I don't know what's going to happen with Carter. Maybe nothing, but I'm not ready to walk away yet." She touched the photo. The plastic curled a little at the corners of the album, but it was still protected for now. She needed to get it into an acid-free binder. Maybe this summer. She packed the album with the things she would take to Texas. She tucked away her favorite girlhood treasures to be stored in her father's basement until she had somewhere of her own to keep them, then stopped when her hand came to the duck ornament. She vividly remembered that first kiss on the paddle boat and all of the others they'd shared. There had been so few. But more than that, she remembered the sense of belonging, the rightness of being in his arms. Carter had been so easy to talk to, and they'd seen eye to eye on so many issues. She choked up again as she fought to stay in control of her emotions. The past couple of weeks had seemed lonely without their regular conversations. He had sent a few half-hearted texts, called in the early days, and she'd replied with brief responses. She couldn't hold on to this uncertainty forever. Either they decided to be a couple, or they had to end things. When she reached Texas, maybe she could find him and see if he felt any different standing in front of him than she did now. Hope rose inside her every time the thought of being near him crossed her mind. She wanted things to work out for them. Chapter 8. There was the sound of wheels on gravel, and since Mara wanted to talk to her sister about Dad's upcoming doctor appointment, preferably not within his hearing, she stepped outside. A red four-door sedan had stopped in front of her house. Not Joe. Mara's heart skipped a few beats when she saw the driver. Her eyes couldn't be working right. The door opened, and Carter got out, his gaze riveted on her. She took a few steps across the green spring grass, still unable to believe what she was seeing. Carter? How? He closed the door and stuck his hands in his pockets, sauntering in her direction. I decided I could use another spring vacation, and Texas is well into summer, so I thought I'd go somewhere where it's still spring. Couldn't imagine spending my vacation without you. She stared at him for a long moment. But you haven't called me in almost a week. It was an inane thing to say, but her brain wasn't processing right. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to see you in person, see if you were as pretty as my memories said you were. He reached out and flicked a lock of her hair back over her shoulder. Apparently my memory is faulty. You're far prettier. She felt her face heat in the cool spring air. The sun would be going down soon, and she could already feel the chill starting. It didn't seem to bother him, even though he wasn't wearing a jacket. Maybe you should come in. She didn't know what else to say or how to respond. Did he think he could show up out of the blue and pick back up where they left off? Yet she had to hold herself back from leaping into his arms. He had come to see her. That meant something, didn't it? She followed his gaze, glancing over her shoulder. Her father stood in the doorway to the house. She bit back a groan. She wasn't ready to make introductions. Not until she and Carter said what he'd come for. Another car pulled into the drive. This time it was her sister's banana yellow Toyota with its green hood. Joe got out and walked over, taking her time as she studied the two of them. A smile crept onto her face as she offered her hand for a shake. You must be Carter. I recognize you from your pictures. You're better looking in person. She gave his hand a squeeze and winked. She turned to Mara with a disapproving, You didn't mention how tall he is. She turned to Carter again. We're having dinner soon. Mara's famous spaghetti and some cookies for dessert. She's a great cook. You should stay and join us. She took off for the house, calling over her shoulder. 5 minutes. That's all I can promise you before Dad charges out and demands an introduction. Nice to meet you, Carter said as if were an afterthought. Don't worry, Mara said once her sister had closed the door behind her. She runs roughshod over everyone. She's a school teacher, so she's been honing that skill. He focused on Mara again. I do feel a bit like I've been bulldozed. You should be able to bounce back. The effect is rarely permanent. Mara forced herself to stick her hands in her back pockets so she wouldn't reach out to touch Carter. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? I thought you might not see me. You've kind of been brushing me off lately. I wasn't the one who did the brush off. She knew that wasn't entirely true, but it felt good to say. When I called, well, you know how that went. He touched her elbow. I know, I didn't mean it like that. You caught me by surprise. I've been tied up inside ever since. Feeling better now? She asked, though she tried to appear disinterested. Some, but there's one more thing I need before I'll feel right again. He took her shoulders, pulling her close and kissing her firmly, tipping his head to seal their mouths together. Relief and joy rushed over her. She felt as if she had come home again as she melted into his kiss, shifting closer and putting her hands on his hard chest. His body heat radiated to her, and she moved into him in the evening chill, melding her body against his. She dreamed of kissing him again, but the real thing was definitely better. I missed you so much, he whispered against her lips. I didn't mean to hurt you. Please say you'll give me another chance. You want another chance? Her heart soared. More than anything, I was confused about moving on and taking risks with a relationship, but I've got it figured out now. Please tell me it's not too late for us. She slid her hands around his neck. It's not too late. Say you'll still move to Texas so we can give this a real shot. Mara grinned. I'm already packing. Say you love me as much as I love you, he said in a whisper. I do love you, you know. It seemed impossible that he'd said the words she'd been longing to hear. She let out a little laugh of joy. I love you too. Being away from you has been terrible. He held her tight, running one hand up her spine, then running his fingers through her hair. Then I have everything I need. Make me a promise? She asked. What? That you'll take me to feed the ducks often and to dance at flea markets. You got it. He kissed her again, lingering over it until Joe came out. Hey, stop putting on a show for the whole neighborhood and bring him in to meet Dad. Mara giggled and buried her face in his shirt, happier than ever that she let Anna talk her into that spring vacation.
Thanks for listening to Dancing at the Flea Market. Please like this story to help others find it, and subscribe to be notified when I post other sweet romance or romantic suspense stories. Hope to see you soon.